Hey y'all, my name is Cassie and I am the creator of Pieces of Scrap, and in today's video we're going to do a challenge where I go into Target and I try to get everything that I need to crochet one or two projects from. I specifically chose Target because they're not known for having crochet supplies. I think they sell some kits. They have like their own brand of crafting kits that they sell at Target, but I'm not sure about this one. This is in a town I'm not usually in, so I don't know what they have in this store, and I don't even have a Target in the town that I live closest to either. So I'm in for a treat to see what we can find here. I'm not even familiar with the layout of this store because I don't really ever go into Targets at all. So I don't even know where the craft section is going to be, what they're gonna have. I might end up maybe going into like the jewelry making section to get a lot of the tools that I will need. So overall, we will see what this trip entails, but big limitations for me are I need to get all of the tools and all of the supplies that I need to make one or two projects from the store. I can't use any of my own things, so I can't use my crochet hooks, I can't use my scissors, my needles, anything like that. Everything that I need for the project needs to come from Target. So let's go ahead and go into the store, see what we can find. Alright guys, so as always, I'm going to go ahead and do some voiceover for you guys so that you know what I was thinking when I was looking through the store. So first off, they had their Easter section front and center, and I had to do a bit of walking to find any sort of crafting section. When I did, I discovered it was all Mondo Llama crafting kits, which seems to be like their brand of crafting kits. Everything I saw was everything you need for this particular craft. So there were some knitting kits, there were crochet kits with large yarn, as well as some random kits. I found a crochet kit for a set of coasters, pot holders, and basket, so I took that and then I went through the crafting section that wasn't kits to look through what other supplies they had. I saw this embroidery floss, and then I was looking through the kits to see if I could find a jewelry making kit that had some of the supplies I needed. When I looked closer at the crochet kit, I saw that it has 4 yarn bundles, 2 pieces of faux leather cording, 2 stitch markers, a tapestry needle, 1 crochet hook, and that was basically it. So I was missing some scissors for sure, but I also wanted to pick up some embroidery floss in case I needed to crochet with that instead of the yarn that comes in that kit. I also looked around this section a little bit more to see if I could find something that had additional supplies or tools that I could use to make something else that wasn't specifically in the kit. I looked around in the next aisle, which had mostly school supplies for younger children, to find myself a pair of scissors. And the cheapest one that I could get for a good value was actually a set of 2. So instead of going for this larger pair of pointed tip scissors, I just got this set of 2 blunt tip scissors because it was much cheaper. I was also looking around here because I spotted some cool storage containers that were pretty cheap. So if you're looking for some storage containers, maybe check out Target for safety eyes or any other tools that you might have that need to be stored away a little bit more creatively. Then I went over to the accessory section and I found these claw clips, which would make a really good contender for potentially crocheting around. I liked the black and the clear ones specifically. Hey guys, I'm back from Target, and man, it was really hard to find things to use in there. All of their craft supplies are kits, except for painting supplies. There's I picked up some embroidery floss. There was also twine, crafting cord, stuff like that. But there weren't a lot of crafting tools. I couldn't find a sewing kit or a jewelry making kit or anything like that. I found some scissors. I got some scissors. There was also I'm sorry, I got really scared because this truck started flying at me and I thought that he was gonna hit my truck, and then I just completely lost my train of thought because then I was oh, I'm staring at them. Anyway, I digress. They didn't have a lot of selection there. When I first found the crochet kit, I was like, okay, I will limit myself to just using the crochet hook out of this. I can use the embroidery floss as my yarn. I can find scissors. There's no scissors in the kit. I can find like a needle, stuff like that. I can find stuffing in other parts of the store, but I wasn't finding any of those things. I couldn't even find like a travel size sewing kit anywhere. I might not have looked super hard, but I was trying not to use their store, their online store or their app to like look things up, because part of the challenge is just finding those things. But what I did pick up, which I think will work, is I was planning on going in there and trying to make like some sort of earrings or something like that. When I was looking in the accessory section for women, I was noticing that a lot of the earrings are like kind of expensive materials, and also I don't know if it would be super easy for me to like take parts apart and turn them into a pair of earrings that I can make myself. So what I ended up getting is a claw clip for hair, and I think what I'm going to end up doing is crocheting around that. But anyway, I'm going to get going home now, and then when I get home I will show you guys my haul. Hey y'all, we're back home and I have my Target haul in my lap here. Got this one single bag from Target, which is a little weird because I feel like usually when I do these challenges I come home with a lot more stuff, a lot more bags. So for example, my first Dollar Tree challenge video, I think I came home with 3 bags because I couldn't find a crochet hook and I couldn't find a lot of other supplies that I really needed. So I was having to bring home a lot more stuff than this, but Target was really slim pickings. So let me go ahead and show you what I got here. So the first elephant in the room is I ended up getting a crochet kit because first off, couldn't find any crochet hooks, couldn't find any yarn needles, couldn't find any yarn. So I grabbed this crochet hook because I was thinking it was the only way I was going to get some of those tools that I really need to complete this project. So I will use some of these materials to make something. I won't be making the coasters that this kit is designed to help you make. But in here we have 4 bundles of yarn, 2 pieces of faux leather for something, I guess, and then there's 2 stitch markers, 1 tapestry needle, 1 crochet hook, and there's also instructions to make these coasters. So we've got a lot of materials in here that we might need to use, mostly being those tools. Next up, if you're familiar with most crochet kits, they don't have scissors in them, so I picked up scissors, and I wanted to go as cheap as I could go because I have a lot of scissors at home. So I ended up going with these, which I believe were just under $2 for a set of 2 pairs of kids scissors. So, and these will also make it easy to like tuck in ends if there's anything sticking out, because if you know me, I like to push my ends in just using a pair of scissors instead of like putting a yarn needle through them and pulling them through back and forth until the yarn is hidden. So got some scissors. Next up, I picked up some crafting floss from that same crafting section. Like I said, the crafting section was really hard to pick through. It was almost all kits. They had a lot of painting selections. They had paintbrushes, palettes, different paints, all sorts of things like that, but they didn't have any like jewelry making, they didn't have any yarn. They really just didn't have a good selection there, so I picked up this in case I couldn't find any yarn anywhere, and it's a good thing that I did because I couldn't find any yarn. So we've got some crafting floss, and I will be using the tools inside of that crochet kit to crochet with, and I won't be using the yarn for the purpose of the crafting kit. And then finally, the last thing that I got was I was trying to figure out what kind of project I wanted to do this time, being that I went in there with the plan of maybe I'd make like earrings or a necklace or something like that. I looked around in the accessories section when I couldn't find any jewelry making tools in the crafting section, and I still couldn't find like a good pair of earrings that I could like disassemble and make into a pair of earrings that I crocheted. So I ended up picking up these claw clips, and I'm thinking that I'll crochet around the claw clip so that it looks crocheted instead of just being a piece of plastic, and kind of making it a little prettier. I'm going to do that with 2 of these claw clips, I think, so we'll have a practice one and then we'll have one that we're going to do for real. I don't know if I'm going to be like sewing like different like crocheted flowers onto them, if I'm just going to be crocheting like patterns onto them or what, but we're going to try to make something work here and hopefully come up with a good final piece. But this is all of my supplies here. So I bought 4 items total. I bought the claw clips, the scissors, the crochet kit, and this embroidery floss. And honestly, if I really wanted to make jewelry, I could have gotten a jewelry crafting kit, but there would have been a lot of items in those crafting kits that went to waste. So I just ended up not pursuing that avenue. I didn't want to waste a crafting kit if I didn't have to. And that's why I chose the things that I did. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started making these projects. Hey y'all, so it is the next day after I actually crocheted the things in this challenge, and I want to state right off the bat that it seems like it was a smaller challenge overall because we were working with the crochet kit. We definitely had more limited materials, and as I was working on the project, I realized that I didn't grab any stuffing for amigurumi, so what I was having to do with one of the projects was specifically just like save yarn scraps from different projects. So I found myself starting one project, the amigurumi one, and then realized that I need stuffing, and then moving on to the other projects so that I would create some stuffing to use in the first project. So here is that first project. It's a little amigurumi mushroom, and it's got this really pretty design on the mushroom cap. It's basically worked like a granny square at the top where you're creating clusters of double crochets and then chaining to create a space, and then you work into those chain spaces in the next row. So that's why we have a little bit of gapping in between those stitches, but with the bottom of the mushroom cap, it fills in those gaps and you don't have to worry about it looking weird or seeing stuffing in between or anything like that, especially since you only have to stuff the bottom of this mushroom, the mushroom stem part itself. I also, when I was working on this mushroom, I had initially created a chain, tied it together, and then sewed it to the inside of this mushroom cap before sewing the mushroom top to the bottom of the stem here. I realized that it was probably going to come loose at some point and cause some issues for whoever wants it, if it's me or if it's somebody else, whoever ends up keeping this mushroom. So I ended up taking that part off and then just attaching the yarn directly to the mushroom cap and then chaining from there, reattaching to the cap, and then just securing those ends and fastening off more securely than the first time. I really enjoyed this pattern. I found it for free on Instagram, so if you're looking for a cute little mushroom pattern that works really nicely in acrylic yarn or worsted weight yarn, something like that, this is definitely a good contender for that. And something else that I quickly want to mention before we move on to the other project that I worked on is just that I was really happy that the yarn needle that was in the crochet kit was actually really nice. It wasn't like a plastic yarn needle that you typically see in these crochet kits. This yarn needle specifically also had a pointed tip to it, so it was like easy to get into areas that might be more difficult to get into, but there's also obviously a downside to that where if you're trying to get in between pieces of yarn instead of like going through the pieces of yarn, it made that more difficult because of that pointed tip. You could get in between like individual threads or fibers in each strand of yarn. So if that's not something that you really enjoy, you might not like that kind of yarn needle. But anyway, I still wanted to mention just the quality materials that were provided in that crochet kit. I will say the colors in the kit were really pretty. The yarn hook itself, the crochet hook, wasn't as nice. It was a plastic crochet hook, similar to like the ones that you get at the Dollar Tree where there's like a rounded end and like some intricate design at the bottom where it like juts in and out to create kind of a fancier looking hook, but all in all it's still a plastic crochet hook. So not super nice of a supply there, but everything else was pretty nice. I liked the colors. The yarn needle was really nice. I was also really surprised that the kit included stitch markers, which was really convenient, and I didn't have to worry about remembering where I left off in a row or just like improvising how I was gonna mark the beginning of a row. With maybe I could have used some embroidery floss, but not a big deal. I really liked the kit for what it was. There was also a really nice manual for making what the kit is supposed to make as well. And there were also some pieces of leather if you wanted to make like a pot holder in the kit. Obviously, I didn't end up using any of those things. I guess if I wanted to, I could have used the leather as the top of the mushroom cap, the little chain here instead, but I just opted not to But overall, still really enjoyed making this little mushroom here. The next project that I made was with the claw hair clips, as well as yarn from the kits and embroidery floss. So kind of combined all of the materials that I ended up buying. And I made 2 clips here. We've got, both of them are pretty similar in design, where I crocheted around the clip itself so that you didn't have as much of the exposed plastic. You just see the plastic on the clip part where you pinch to open it, and the claw part itself, the little teeth of the claw. I do have a little bit of a concern that the smaller teeth on the inside that are supposed to help grip your hair might like be a little bit less accessible, and I'm not sure if that actually makes a difference for anybody when they're putting their hair in these clips, if it keeps it like more secured or what. But those are a little bit covered, but as you like kind of pinch here, you can feel them still poking out, so it's not like they're not there, they're still there and you can still feel them. So I'm not sure if the yarn being wrapped around these little teeth at the bottom are going to impede the use of the claw clip in general. Here's a closer look at that blue one. We've got 2 little embroidered flowers on each side, and I tried to make it as like symmetrical as possible, obviously, except for I changed which flower on each side was the larger flower. So on one side we have the kind of like dusty rose color as the larger flower, and then the other side of the smaller, and obviously that's the same for the yellow flower. We've got the smaller one on one side and the larger one on the other side. And I'm not super thrilled with how this one came out specifically, just because of the limited color scheme that I had. I wasn't a huge fan of the color scheme, but I still think it's really pretty for what I had available. Something else that I didn't really realize until after was I kind of really wanted to make one of these claw clips like a rainbow design, but I was just worried about tucking in ends and things like that, so I just didn't end up doing that. But I'm definitely more proud of the second one that I'm about to show you. So here is that second claw clip. We have similar designs on either side, but the color scheme changes slightly. I just ended up, sorry, I'm like pulling hairs out because some hair got caught in between the stitches. Does anybody else have that problem where like you have your own hair that gets caught in the stitches, especially with worsted weight yarn? Or it's like your dog hair or your cat hair and it just like gets in between the stitches and then you have to like carefully pull it out. I'm seeing a lot of that right now, and I think it's specifically almost always the worsted weight yarn, because it's just like it attracts dander and lint and stuff like that a lot easier than the typical yarn that I work with, which is like the polyester yarn of all of the yarns that are behind me on my yarn wall. But anyway, here's a closer look at that claw clip. I like the clear bits of this claw clip. I think it complements the color scheme that I chose much better than the other one where the claw clip was black and then I had to kind of work with what I had, which wasn't much. For these flowers on this claw clip is a little bit differently because I used the French knot embroidery technique to add a little flower center to each of the flowers. So they have little flower centers, while this claw clip doesn't have any color in the center of each flower, so that's definitely different. And then the flowers that I did on here are actually done differently than the flowers that I did on this one, and I kind of just like freestyled it. So I believe for this larger flower I did a magic ring, and then I did a chain 2, and then I did 3 double crochets, and then actually it looks like 4 double crochets, and then I would slip stitch back into the magic ring, and then I would repeat that. So for this one specifically, you're seeing like an irregular shape here because one side with that chain 2 is a lot shorter than the other side of the same petal where it ends in a double crochet. Because for me, at least, when I chain 2, my tension stays the same, whereas some people, I think when they chain the tension is a little bit looser to accommodate for working into chains. But typically when I make a double crochet, I really need to make 3 chains to work up to that height for me at least, but it might be different depending on your tension. Obviously this flower looks a little bit different in assembly than this one as well. That's a different pattern. Like I was saying, I kind of just freehanded these flowers, so there's nothing special about them. I didn't use a pattern or anything like that, but I think I really perfected the shape of that kind of flower with the 5 petals on this clip specifically. I just think they look a lot prettier, and they want to like curl out more, which kind of looks more like petals of flowers than the other one. And then for the 3 petal flowers on both of these clips, that's the same design. It's just magic ring, chain 3, and then you create 2 double crochets, and then you chain 3 and slip stitch back into the magic ring, and you do that for a total of 3 times. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I know I definitely settled on making smaller projects than normal when we're doing these challenge videos, but I was really limited in options from this target, so I hope you give me a little grace there. But anyway, I hope you guys really enjoyed this video. If you want to see more from me in the future, maybe leave some suggestions in the comment section about what store you want me to try next. If you want me to go back to Dollar Tree, if you want me to try another Target. Another idea that I had was to try out finding items that are only in the clearance section, and I was trying to debate whether or not I should limit that to 1 store only, or if I should give myself like 3 stores that I have to use only the clearance section to crochet something from, and then that way it would be a little bit more of a challenge and not as limiting, because a lot of the times you're not going to get all of the items that you need from one clearance section. Obviously, it really depends on the store what clearance section has what, so I feel like 3 stores would probably be a little bit more doable than just limiting myself to like 1 store. But anyway, if you guys like this video and you want to see more in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I put out new videos every Tuesday, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!